Hello, so I'm James. I made ANTIVIRUS for Ludem Dare 38. You're watching this on the Culture Boss channel, and I've made the game as Kappa 9 on the site. So that's all really confusing. I really need to sort out what the heck I call myself online. But that's my problem. I'll sort that out. So what did I end up making? It's a top-down shooter, pretty simple one, but it all works, which is good. Set inside a computer. That's my interpretation of the theme, which was supposed to have a little mechanical flair on it as well. But I don't think that worked massively well, but I'll speak about that in a sec. What you actually have to do, the progression of the game is in each little area. You have to shoot all the spawners or get through, get through to the end, and the barrier will open, or you'll reach a point where you then move on, and you've got to do it without getting shot by the things that are trying to shoot you, and you've got to shoot them. So you get 3 hits. You can get hit 3 times by the enemies, and if you get down to 1 hit point left, there's a chance that sort of health pack things will spawn for you. And that's random, but it's relatively generous, and you should get one fairly quickly. So it does have a size changing gimmick as well, that you hit certain power-ups and they make you bigger or they make you smaller, and that was kind of supposed to tie into the theme as well. But as they actually are implemented in the game, they're more just scene changes, really. They don't actually do a lot. They're more a bit of visual flair in the final thing, rather than something particularly meaningful. So what about the theme? Well, I wasn't absolutely in love with the theme when I first saw it, but I think I'm mostly just saying that because I thought there were more exciting ones on the list. Not just, not that there was anything bad with this one. I don't think there actually are any bad themes, just me not being able to come up with any ideas or having some sort of preconception about what might actually be fun to make. So I did think about doing some sort of political game, the idea of it being a small world, our world being a small world, particularly as in the week before Ludem Dare was running. At the weekend there'd be a lot of interesting things going on, interesting in massive air quotes, with stuff like Trump in America and Kim Jong-un, and people getting upset about missile tests and worried if there's going to be a nuclear war and that kind of thing. I definitely think there was a fun game idea in that, particularly if you injected a bit of humour and a bit of writing into it. But I didn't go with that. I had some ideas for a sort of strategy thing, but I did something similar for a previous Ludem Dare, and I was making something in Game Maker with menus and lots of UI and stuff like that, and it was a massive pain, and I didn't want to do that again anytime soon. That's one thing where Game Maker, I think, really just doesn't do the heavy lifting that well when you're trying to do UI and stuff like that. You could manually make a lot of the art assets, so definitely decided to avoid that. Also toyed briefly with the idea of making some sort of tiny Zelda game. I'm pretty sure that's just because I was playing Breath of the Wild whilst Ludem Dare was running as well, so I thought about it, but I couldn't come up with a really interesting way to kind of twist that or anything, which I don't necessarily think I managed to do in the end, but I couldn't think of anything interesting to do otherwise than just make a small area of Zelda or something like that. So otherwise I was kind of struggling. I think this is the one area where, for me, working in a team, which I've done previously, is really valuable, because you get to bounce ideas off each other and you tend not to rush into doing something. Yeah, it prevents you committing to the idea too early. So in the end I was probably sitting looking at my computer and decided to set it inside a computer, which probably shows an incredible lack of imagination, but it's the idea of a small world. But I thought maybe there'd be a virus advancing on different components in your computer, and you'd defend and attack in each one, and stuff like that. A lot of that didn't actually make it into the game, but that was definitely the genesis of what the final idea was. So what went right? I'm generally happy with the things that I did that actually made it into the game. like the enemies that are in there, the spawners, the diamond guys that hunt you down. They work well. The spawners spawn. I think they spawn at an okay rate, and they're pretty obvious what they do. And the diamond guys do a good job of shooting you and finding you. And work fairly well. And the pathfinding on them works, and I tried to make it so the level design worked well with the pathfinding. They had some interesting different routes to take if you didn't move a lot. And then the static eye enemies, they're a bit weaker. They don't really add a huge amount. They're just a little roadblock, but there's something different. I don't know, maybe I should have designed things to look a bit different as well, but I was trying to keep stuff. I had a vision of a really sort of simple art style that I might actually be able to pull off. So I stuck to a few, very few colours in the actual game. Unfortunately, in a top-down shooter type game, or lots of action shooter games, it's usually a combination of enemies which makes stuff challenging. It's having one enemy that behaves in one way and another enemy that behaves in another way. And then you throw them all at the player together, and then you have to prioritise, and you have to dance around and sort of improvise and things like that. So with only one actual enemy type that does much of a job of trying to get you, it's a bit samey. It's quite short, which is good for it in that way, but there's no way this game could get any bigger without some serious addition of some enemies. So I think that would be an area to improve, definitely. I'm also pleased with the general level of polish, and by polish I just mean that there's graphics for everything, there's sounds for everything important. Got some music on it, and that sort of stuff. The art is okay. I am not really an artist. Cheated a bit by making everything just shapes, but I think the game is readable. The enemies are red. They are bad guys. Shoot the bad guys. You don't need to really spend a lot of time communicating what's an enemy and what isn't. Also the power-ups are not red. So you might work out quite quickly that they're not an enemy and hopefully walk into one. I tried to put them in the way as well, as much as possible. And the barriers, they are red, like the enemies. So hopefully in the areas where you need to kill all the spawners to get through, you'd work out that, maybe this has got something to do with the enemies, and hopefully you just want to go and shoot them anyway because they're trying to shoot you. One thing is with the size changing thing as well, when you're zoomed in, everything looks a bit flat and very simple, and you start the game like that, which is a bit of a weakness. But then once you start getting the things that make you larger and you zoom out and stuff looks a lot more complex, it kind of looks better as well. The game also has a menu screen, a death screen, a game end screen, so at least when you're playing you kind of hopefully won't get angry because you actually know what's happening. Sometimes with a few Game Jam games I've played, you reach a point where you can't get any further and you're wondering, did they just not finish it? Is there nothing else? Am I missing something? So hopefully at least in this you'll work out it's like, it's over, there's not any more game, or I've died, or whatever. It is stable as well, the game, doesn't break as far as I can tell. Maybe you found something. If you do, let me know. I'd be intrigued to know what you did. The collision isn't too much of a problem. Don't tend not to get stuck on stuff, and bullets hit enemies die. It's pretty simple, so there shouldn't be any real problems, but at least it all works, which is always nice. The sound is simple, but it's functional. It does its job. You can tell when you've hit an enemy, when an enemy's shooting at you, when an enemy's hit you, when you're firing. I might have really said that, but you get the idea. All the key things are sort of picked out by the sound, and it makes an amazing difference as soon as you get some on there. I think though, something for me to do in the next Game Jam that I do would be to do a different style of sounds, not digital synthesized ones, but try and record some of my own, live, or go for something more organic, but some sort of radically different style, because I tend to, I think, fall back on digital synthesized sounds because they're quick and easy to do. But we'll see. That's definitely something on my wish list for next time. I also quite like the music. It's one of the things I most enjoy doing, and I think it's one of the areas I'm most competent. And it's all right. It sort of fits the tempo of the game. You're not going to be buying it on vinyl or anything anytime soon, but it provides a bit the energy and the right sort of background. But again, I think that's something I'd like to work on specifically next time, would be to try and use some real instruments, record me playing them and try and make some music out of that instead of making it all digital. But it suited the style of this game. It's a digital little game, so it can have some digital music. So what could have gone better? Well, I've probably already mentioned quite a few things that could have gone better, but the shrinking gimmick is the main thing that makes me sort of regretful, because it doesn't add anything to the game. I had an idea to make it more non-linear, so you'd have a larger area that you have to move around in a sort of free-form way instead of following a path as the character. And sometimes you'd need to get bigger, which would make you tougher, and you could take on tougher stuff, and then sometimes you need to get smaller to go inside things. And I actually put a lot of the background into the game. You can't actually tell when you're playing it, but your damage scales up when you grow, and it goes down when you get smaller. But the bad guys in the game also have more health when they're big, and they move faster to compensate and everything. So you could have had a thing where when you're little and weak, it's really, a big diamond is actually really scary. But I didn't have time to sort of do the level design and the progression of the game to put that all together, so I had to make it a lot more linear, and I didn't really make a lot out of the mechanic. So as it is in the game, it's really just a visual effect. But at least it works, and it looks quite fun. So I mentioned this before, and it's the combination of enemies that provide the challenge in a game like this, and make it exciting. So when all the main enemies that you're facing behave in exactly the same way, it means you can easily predict them, you can easily evade them, you know what they're going to do. So my conclusions: I didn't push myself. I played it safe, and through that I created something familiar and not very inspired, which is a bit of a shame. Also, I didn't push myself when it came to the art, really. As I said, I'm not an artist, but I think I could have done more. I could have tried to come up with more interesting designs for stuff. Even if I drew them really badly, I could have tried to make things a bit more exciting. If you're representing like a virus attacking a computer in a digital world, they could look like anything, but I ended up drawing diamonds. So that's my fault. Could have done something a bit more exciting there. The sound and music were overall pretty good. They did the job. They sound okay. They sound finished-ish, and they do what they're supposed to do. So, they all work, and I quite like the music track. I might try and make a full 3-minute thing out of it at some point, remix it or something like that. But yeah, that was okay. I think what's there of the gameplay as well is good. It works. You can dance around, you can shoot at stuff. I think it feels fairly responsive. Bullets go where they're supposed to. The general pace of it is good, but it needs more enemies. It needs something to make it interesting and to keep you moving and shooting and make it a bit more frantic, and some weapon power-ups and variety to make it more exciting. As it is, playing it for any length of time, which I obviously did when I was making it, it gets quite repetitive. So what's there was good, but it needs way more variety. The shrinking and growing mechanic was a fun idea, but I completely underdeveloped it. It makes for a fun visual effect, but that's about it, really. So am I happy? Yes, absolutely. I think, actually, looking back at it, a lot of this has sounded quite negative, but I'm just being critical, really. I'm trying to learn some lessons. So even if I sound a bit negative doing this, I don't feel negative. I feel really, really happy with what I did. I finished a little game. My quick list of what I'd look to do next time. So push myself more to develop my response to the theme before I start actually sitting down at the computer. Think more, go through lots of stuff, try and force myself to write lots of ideas, and then, and only then, sort of actually pick one. I think I picked something too fast, and I was going down a road that wasn't very exciting. Try and focus on some sort of novel mechanic. Try and come up with a fun, like the mechanic in this, the shrinking, growing one. I should have sat down with that and made everything about that instead of trying to make a shooter. So again, sit down before I begin and have a think about it. And then also see if I can do a radically different art style, or find an artist to team up with. Try and do something different. I do a lot of in these things a lot of pixely art things, and that's not because I'm a great pixel artist like some people are, and that's why they pick it. It's because it's just about something I can knock out, and it shows. It shows that I'm not an artist, but I'll give it a go. But next time, I'll do something different, like draw something, or try a really different style. And then also stuff that I mentioned, make my own sounds in some way, don't synthesize them, and try doing something different for music. So what's next for me? Well, at the moment I'm working on a short, atmospheric, very dark horror game, which I'm using to practice my 3D skills and 3D level design and lighting skills. So if you're even vaguely interested in that, please keep an eye on my Twitter or on my website, which is linked with this video. And please don't hesitate to say hello on Twitter if you use it. I'm trying to make more of an effort to speak to people on there, because there are lots of cool people. You can ignore all the people who aren't cool and just speak to the cool ones. So say hello. If you haven't played the game, then please do. You've probably seen most of it in the background of this video, but there's a link as well, so please go and have a look. I'd really appreciate you having a play, and obviously let me know if you like it or if you hate it, or if you completely disagree with anything I've said. You'll also find a page with all my past Game Jam games on there, which vary wildly in quality, but there's some that are quite good and some that are not quite so good, but I think there's something to like in all of them. And otherwise, I will definitely be back for next Ludem Dare. Really looking forward to it. So I need to stop navel gazing and stop being so reflective, because now I need to go and look at other people's games and see what they did. I've already played a few and it was really fun. So looking forward to seeing how everything goes on the new site, which I think should be quite good. It seems to be working alright the last time I checked. So yeah, looking forward to doing that. But otherwise, if you've watched this all the way to the end, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And please say hello.